for hanging with us as we allowed our members to get here. Really excited that we have the entire committee here with us tonight. Vadim is joining us by phone, and Britt and Steve are going to be joining us just a little bit later, but I thought it would be great if everybody could just go down the line, introduce yourself if you're sitting on a committee or a chair, if you could just state that committee as well.
Patrick Nolan, the chair or co-chair of the subcommittee for people with mental illness.
Elliot Young, I guess working on the subcommittee on race, ethnicity, and other.
Amy Anderson, and I haven't picked a subcommittee yet.
Lockie Drury, co-chair.
Vivi Marcia Perez, race, ethnic, and other subcommittee.
Lakeisha Dumas, co-chair, PCCEP.
Andrew Kallick, member of the steering committee and the settlement agreement and policy committee.
Yolanda Salguero, co-chair of the youth subcommittee.
Sam Sachs, chair of the race, ethnicity, others committee.
So we have quite a packed agenda tonight, so just want to let everybody know we'll go probably right up to 8:30, if not a little bit after, so have patience with us tonight. I'm going to turn it over to co-chair Lakeisha to do our opening moment of silence.
Lighting candles for those who lost folks to violence, who lost folks to mental illness, and who have family members who are struggling to get the services they need for mental illness. There's a lot of you have their names, and we'll have a moment of silence for them if you want to participate. And those who are in our hearts, our minds, the moment of silence. All right, moving to subcommittee reports. Steering committee.
Steering committee, our last meeting we basically talked a lot about the recommendations that are coming up tonight. We spent a substantial time looking at the recommendation process, which is on here on the agenda, the recommendations. but we're not going to go through tonight just in the interest of time, but just looking at how do we streamline the process. I feel very confident that we have a process that works for both the public to bring recommendations to PCCEP and also for PCCEP members to get those passed through and just kind of have more of an understanding of what the roles are in both of those. And that's something we've been working on for the last several months. So feel confident about that. So we ironed that out. And then just spent the rest of the bulk of the time talking about the COCO report that's going to be presented tonight and just looking at strategy around that and what are, where does PCCEP fit into that whole process between the city, the Department of Justice, and PPB. So that was that, and then setting the agenda for tonight and coming up with what was important out of all that. Oh, and then also debriefing the PCCEP retreat, which was a very helpful 2-day process where PCCEP members just got to kind of reflect on everything that we've been through in the last 6 months or so, new members and things of that nature, and just kind of realign ourselves and figure out what our plan is going forward. So it was a much needed time, and we're looking forward to doing more of those more frequently. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Andrew.
Nope, said it all.
All right, subcommittee, people with mental illness.
Hi. We had a great meeting. We discussed our 2 new recommendations that we are bringing forward tonight, and that pretty much covers it.
Thank you. Race, ethnicity, and other subcommittee.
Hi, my name is Sam Sachs, again. Was it October 3rd? 4th. October 4th, we had a subcommittee meeting at Highland Christian Church where we invited the community to come together and hear from the gun violence reduction team. The gun violence reduction team did a presentation, a PowerPoint of who they were as the gang violence reduction team to who they are today, kind of going over to give information to community members because there's been some confusion. There's a lot that has changed, not just the name, but their role in the work that they do. So they did a PowerPoint presentation. I think everyone from Captain, Lieutenant, and Chief Deputy Shear was there. Everyone was there and available for to answer questions. So it was very informative about what the work that they do. We then heard from 3 community members that were affected by gun violence and 1 officer from Portland Police who has worked on both the gang enforcement team and the gun violence reduction team since, I think maybe 15, 20 years. We talked about what he's experienced and relationships he's built. We then had group discussion and heard from community members that were able to express their concerns about the work that's being done and what they would like to see done moving forward. And it was a very, felt it was very transparent and open. We did not discuss any of the data because they did not have the data at the time. They were still gathering it, preparing it, but they said that they would come back at a later date to bring the data and to have another discussion. I think there probably wasn't time to do both because data's needs a lot of attention. But I thought it was a really informative meeting, and it was good for the community to be there. We need to get more community members there, more people that are affected by gun violence and at those meetings. And the gun violence reduction team said that they are open to having more of those types of sessions where community-driven community members can come and they can explain what the work they do, hear from community members. So I want to open it up to the other committee members if they want to add, because it was a pretty powerful, impactful meeting. Mercy or Lafayette, if you want to say anything.
Sure, yeah, we were able to come up with some recommendations out of the feedback, and we talked about those at our last meeting. But one of the things that I found was really important, I think that there was a lot of power in the room as far as dialogue goes. And one thing that I think is really important is that we evaluate the process. So I've solicited feedback from folks that attended as far as the location, appropriateness, time, certain things to be informed by the community as far as being trauma informed and sensitive to different walks of life and accessibility. I also am working with the gun violence reduction team to set up a time to debrief and hear about what their thoughts are and how we can come back. And I think that was a very preliminary, in the early stages of doing something really great in the long term. So I'm excited. I thought it was really great, and so far the feedback's been positive. So we are moving forward, and hopefully once they do have the data, we'll be facilitating another listening session, and would love to see a greater outcome from communities that are impacted by gun violence.
Yeah, that's.
No, that's it, I think, summarized. Thanks for the recommendations. Do you have those with you?
No, they're not completely drafted.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, can Settlement and Agreement Policy Committee.
Sure, so we had a couple of agenda items this month. The first was talking about how to move the Truth and Reconciliation Commission model forward. As some of you recall, we recommended that the Police Bureau incorporate a Truth and Reconciliation model into its community engagement plan. The Bureau did that, but also mentioned that a Truth and Reconciliation model cannot just include the Bureau, it has to include many other community stakeholders, which we agree with. And so one of the things that we were trying to do at this meeting was identify certain stakeholders who we could invite to a future subcommittee meeting and talk about what comes next. What do we need to know? Who needs to be at the table? And how do we make this something that's beyond just pen on paper and real? So that's one of our key goals. We also discussed a couple of additional policy issues that are sort of front and center in a variety of places, including Portland, one of which is facial recognition technology and the use of facial recognition technology by both public and private entities. There has been discussion of this at the City Council. Commissioner Hardesty has been particularly outspoken about the use of this technology, and so what we'd like to do again as a subcommittee is bring together some relevant stakeholders as well as anyone else in the community who wants to take part in a discussion of the pros and cons and issues that facial recognition technology brings up. So we will be again scheduling that for a later subcommittee meeting, and all of you as well as the general public will know when we calendar that item. And our last thing was talking about the compliance officer report that we'll hear about shortly. So a lot more to come on that. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Youth Subcommittee.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Our committee met on the 13th from 3 to 5, so we had a good 2-hour meeting. Half of our committee was in Therido, which kind of brought us to reaching out to our admin staff, asking if we had any youth applications. And so at this time, we're still accepting youth applications to try and increase our numbers for our board. We recapped the retreat for folks who attended. We reviewed the mental health committee recommendations that they're asking for us to vote on tonight. That took up a bulk of our meeting. And then our survey, which is supported by Portland Public Schools, we talked about that because we now have been asked to send over 6 additional documents, which we did not have. So we are going to work on those 6 additional documents, one of them which includes a copy of approval from an institutional review board. Thank you.
Thank you for all the subcommittee updates. I'm gonna turn it back over to Lakiana.
Okay, so we're gonna move into our Cocoa Town Hall. This is one of the parts of the settlement agreement where PCCEP is supposed to have a quarterly town hall with the compliance officer, Dr. Rosenbaum. So he will be presenting their quarterly report that has to do with compliance issues. So we'll invite him up. The presentation will be up here. If you would like a paper copy of the presentation, you can find it up at the front where the sign-in is at. PCCEP members can probably just turn around to face the presentation or look on from the paper copy if you have that. Followed by the presentation, we will open it up to PCCEP comments and questions. and then open it up for public comment. And this will last around an hour. Thank you. Dr. Rosenbaum?
Thank you. Is this mic on here?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, I'm Dennis Rosenbaum, the compliance officer, and thank you all for being here and putting up with me talking here. I will try to run this PowerPoint slide as I'm talking as well. Let's see if it works. No, it doesn't. Where do I point this? Which direction? It's working. Oh, it is working. It's just slower. Okay. So basically, I'm going to cover this, kind of quickly go through it. There's quite a bit of findings. If we can hold the questions till I get done, then we'll have plenty of time, hopefully. There's two different areas our report contains.